A long time ago, I started my own business. My first business was a traditional business, a professional services-based practice in wealth management. And then subsequently, I set up a training organization, and then I've had another training organization, and then we built a business advisory. But one of the reasons I believe I had the confidence, courage, and vision to be able to start my business and then build multiple businesses after that was the fact that prior to me starting my first business, I had got a lot of diversity of experience when I was working for somebody else. And I never allowed myself to get comfortable in a position, no matter how well I was doing, and no matter how much competency I had achieved as far as my job duties were concerned. I ensured that I was always putting myself in the discomfort zone by applying for different positions, sometimes within the same organization, and other times apply for positions outside of the organization, and even sometimes applying for positions that were outside of the industry. The reason I did that was because I wanted to expose myself to a range of different scenarios across a set of different organizational cultures, working with different teams, because the more you have been exposed to different situations, the more your confidence is built, simply because you're not worried about how it's going to be because you've had so much exposure. Now, when I talk about this to people who are looking to make a transition at some stage from employment to self-employment, building a business or working for themselves, a lot of the times people have this concern that how they're going to get that diversity of experience, because if they don't interview well, then they're not going to get those new positions within their organization or within their industry in the first place. So I thought it's probably a good idea for me to talk about what are some of the things that people can do to interview really well if they're looking to get diversity of experience. Now, for those of you who have come to my events or you have been consuming my content, you know I'm not a very big fan of remaining in a 9-to-5 for the rest of your life. And the only exceptions to that, I guess, for me are if you really love your 9-to-5, if it pays you really well, where you can put at least 50 to 20% of your income towards future investments, or if your 9-to-5 is allowing you opportunities to get into executive positions. Other than that, I'm not a really big fan of remaining in a 9-to-5 over the long term. Having said that, there is merit in doing jobs for at least an initial period to get that experience and to learn how organizations and businesses work. But for us to gain that diversity of experience, I think it's important that we know how to interview well, because the more we know how to interview well, the higher the probability that we'll be able to secure new positions to get that diversity of experience that we're after. So here are my tips in order to ensure maximum success when you're being interviewed. Tip number 1, dress apart. Now, when we talk about dressing apart, what we're not suggesting is that you try and dress in a way that you stand out. But what we are saying is that make sure that your clothes are well tailored, they're clean, they fit well, and that you come across as really professional. And I always suggest to people that when you dress for a job, obviously find out what the organizational culture is. Some jobs are a little bit more relaxed when it comes to dress code. Some are very professional. Some are sort of going towards that sophisticated dress code. Find out what that organizational culture is in terms of dress code. But when you dress for the interview, go for the next job, whatever that might be. Don't dress for the job that you're applying for. Dress for the job after that. And if you do that, then what's going to happen is you're going to come across as somebody who has leadership capabilities, somebody who is quite self-aware and social aware, and somebody who takes care of their personality and presence. This will immediately make a positive impression. Now, one of the things that I suggest to men is nothing is better than a white or a blue shirt. I mean, it's been in style for many, many years. It's very simple, not too many patterns, make sure it's well tailored, and it's clean. For women, again, just sticking to really plain colors, beige, burgundy, green, navy blue. These are some of the nice colors for women. And for men, I usually recommend charcoal, or it could be navy. They're some of the best colors when it comes to corporate jobs anyway. But of course, if you're working for a startup or you're going for a small to medium-sized business, if the culture is a bit more relaxed, then you may not want to wear a tie, for example. But again, you just want to make sure that you look apart, you look clean, you look fresh, and make sure that there is no hair coming out of different places and things like that. As far as accessories are concerned, don't over accessorize. For men, maybe a ring, a watch and cufflinks is more than sufficient. And for women, again, just earrings and a nice necklace is more than sufficient. If you overdo it, then it takes the attention from the conversation to the appearance, and that is not something that you want. The second tip that I would give you in regards to interviewing really well is to have a pleasant disposition. Now, if you have a natural smile, then wear that smile. But if you're a little bit on the serious side, you can still relax your facial expressions a little bit more so you come across as personable and approachable. You don't want to demonstrate too much authority when you're going to be working for somebody else, because that may threaten the person who's interviewing you. You can have reasonable level of authority in your presence, but make sure that the facial expressions are not too stiff, they're relaxed, and you come across as a pleasant person and somebody that's easy to work with. Because that's a concern that a lot of employers have. They don't mind people having some authority, they don't mind people demonstrating leadership capabilities, but deep down everybody's thinking, am I going to be able to work with this person? Is this person going to get along with the rest of the team? So when you have a more relaxed and pleasant disposition and a level of humility, then that makes you more attractive as a job candidate. The third thing I would suggest, and this is quite a unique tip, is carry a notebook. It actually shows that you're a serious person. I would never go empty-handed. I would always carry a notebook or a small diary in my hand with a pen, and I would ask the interviewer, is it okay for me to make some notes as you're talking, just so I can make sure that I've heard you correctly and I've captured the critical points. The reason this works really well is because it demonstrates to the person who's interviewing you that you're really serious. You're here to learn and you're receptive to what they're telling you. And also it demonstrates that you're not somebody who is just relying on their memory. I think most leaders understand that the bluntest pencil is better than the sharpest mind. The fact that you are willing and you're open to the fact that you should be capturing some ideas, it also demonstrates a high level of respect for the person who's interviewing you. So this small tip can be a very effective way to create a positive impression. The fourth tip that I would recommend is to really understand what are the outcomes and behaviors that the job requires. So if you're not completely certain, demonstrate inquisitivity and curiosity around what it is that they're looking for and what the main expectations are. If those parts are already highlighted in the job description, make sure you bring them up specifically. Don't talk about things like I'm hardworking and I'm a positive person, I have integrity. Those things don't really mean anything. You want to always connect your behavioral attributes to the outcomes that they're looking for that particular position. And by that, you are making the conversation a lot more relevant rather than generic. You can imagine people who are interviewing candidates are constantly hearing candidates putting themselves in the best light possible, but the mistake that a lot of candidates make is they use generic terminology to try and demonstrate they're a good person to be hired for that job. So as much as you can, try and be very specific about where a behavioral attribute would connect really well with the outcome that they're looking for that position. The fifth thing that you can do to make sure that you create a positive impression on the people that are interviewing you is to ensure that you've done some research on the organization. It is always a good idea to know the organization, how long they've been around, what they stand for, what their values are, what their culture is like, and if you can, try and find out some of the challenges that they may be having. Now, why you want to do that is because you want to convey to the person who's interviewing you that you're not just there because you're looking for a salary. You're there because you care about what you do. And look, I would highly recommend that you don't fake this. Look for organizations that are culturally aligned with your values, so you naturally feel connected to that organization and you're enthusiastic about where the organization's heading. But even if you are enthusiastic about where the organization's heading, it's always good to do some background research so you can bring that up in the interview. You can tell them what it is that you like about that organization, what it is that is exciting you about this particular interview. Enthusiasm is a wonderful quality trait that you can have, and it's incredible that a lot of people don't really demonstrate enthusiasm. Now, we're not talking about being outwardly enthusiastic. If you can demonstrate some enthusiasm, you can be very specific about what are the things that the organization is doing that appeal to you, then that can create a really positive impression on the person that's interviewing you as well. The sixth tip that I would give you is to come up with a list of reasons why you want to work for this particular organization, for the particular job. So in the last point, we talked about having something that you can talk about that aligns you with the organization, but then also have 2 or 3 points that will align you to this particular job description. So why are you the right person for this job description? This is something you want to prepare beforehand. You don't want to come up with some sort of a generic response, because employees who are connected with the job description genuinely are more likely to get selected than employees who are just looking for a job. So your responsibility is to ensure that this comes across in the interview, that the interviewer can clearly see that you've done your thinking, you've analyzed the job description properly, and you have determined yourself to be the appropriate fit for that job description, but you must know why that is. What are some roles and responsibilities of that particular position that are very appealing to you, and what part of your experience or what part of your behavioral traits or your personality traits are perfect for the expectations that the employer has. The seventh tip that I would give you is that do not be shy about talking about your weaknesses. You see, there is no perfect human being in the world. And when you are comfortably able to talk about your weaknesses without feeling embarrassed, what it demonstrates is a level of maturity and self-awareness that a lot of employers would admire and respect. Now, you can always talk about a particular weakness, and then you can talk about what you're doing to rectify or correct or improve that weakness. And what it tells people is that you understand that you have a weakness, and people are very forgiving about the fact that people have weaknesses. But what people are not forgiving about is the fact that when people try and hide those weaknesses, or they pretend that they don't have those weaknesses. So when you're talking about you're going to talk about your strengths, but it's always good to have 2 or 3 weaknesses that you've had or challenges that you've had, and be pre-prepared with those responses. And when it's the appropriate time, a lot of the times employers will ask you what are your weaknesses or challenges, then at that time you can bring that up. But it's always good to know upfront what you're going to talk about, and then the moment you've talked about your weakness, talk about what you're doing to fix it. Tip number 8 is do not bring your mobile phone with you. If you're going to carry it, have it in your briefcase or have it in your bag, or just make sure that it's not visible. Certainly do not look at it at all throughout the interview process. Addiction to the internet and social media is a real problem. And even if you look at your phone once or twice, even if you're looking at the time, it may give the wrong impression. It's always better to wear a watch if you need to know the time, and not to look at the phone, because they're not going to know that you're looking at your phone to look at the time. So do not take your phone out, do not put it on the desk, and certainly do not look at it when you're in the interview. The 9th tip that I would give you around making a positive impression at an interview is to ask some really good questions about the organization, about the team, and about the job. So have a few questions ready. And what you're demonstrating essentially is that you are already visualizing yourself in that role, and you're excited about the challenges. And you want to do your best, you want to bring something, you want to contribute something, and that ability to contribute to the growth of that business or to solving the problems and challenges that that team or that business is having will make a really positive impression on the interviewer as well. My 10th tip to leave a positive impression, and this could be a real masterstroke if you do it well, is after the interview, when you've thanked people and you looked at them in the eye, and just give a small smile, and then as you walk away, don't overthank them, don't be overly subservient, just be normal, right? Just be normal. But once you go back, do a video note or a short voice note and email it to them, and all you have to do is just thank them. Say, thank you so much, I had an amazing time, I really learned a lot about your organization, and it was a great experience for me, and thank you so much for your time. And I just want to say it was something that was valuable. So if there was any couple of points that they raised and you felt that they were really good for your development, bring them up specifically. A lot of candidates are going to walk away from a job interview and never ever contact the employer, or they'll only contact the employer or the recruitment agency when they want to know the outcome. But this particular gesture of just sending them a thank you note, it could be a voice or a video note, just saying thank you, and I really enjoyed the experience, I appreciated the opportunity, I learned all of these things, is also going to make you stand out from other candidates. If any of this has been valuable, I would love to know what was one standout tip that you think you can use and you think is going to improve your ability to be able to secure the next position. Please share it in the comments so I can see it and others can see it, and make a plan to work on all of those points so that you can maximize your probability of success in regards to securing your next position.